Welcome to the Family Holiday Destinations podcast, where we inspire your next family adventure. I'm Jessica Palmer, mother of two and founder of Family Holiday Destinations. And today we're diving into a topic every parent ponders when thinking about the school holidays. It's how to actually choose the right family holiday destination that will keep everyone happy. It's easy to get overwhelmed with options: beach or city, budget or splurge, something adventurous, something super relaxing. To help us sort through it all, I sat down with Melissa Delaware, a travel agent at Mind, Body and Travel, and the founder of the Thrifty Family Travels and Queensland Travel Guides websites. She's helped countless families plan trips, so she knows the trends, the pitfalls, and the insider tips. We'll get into that chat shortly, but first, let's take a look at what's making headlines in family travel this month. This month, two stories caught my eye that I wanted to share with you. First, travel bookings to Fiji and Japan are hitting record highs, and it's fascinating to see why these two particular destinations are topping family wish lists right now. I mean, they're not exactly what anyone would consider budget destinations. So are families choosing experiences that feel worthwhile over budget options that leave them short on memories? It seems so. Second, a quirky but important one. Did you know Australia has been ranked in the top 5 places for selfie-related accidents? Yep, that's a thing. It's a reminder that while we all love capturing those family holiday snaps, safety needs to come first. You can find both of these stories in more detail over on the Family Holiday Destinations website. I'll pop the links in the show notes. Now, on to today's interview. I had the pleasure of chatting with Melissa Delaware, a travel agent at Mind, Body and Travel, and also the powerhouse behind two hugely successful family travel websites, Thrifty Family Travels and Queensland Travel Guides. Melissa has traveled far and wide with her daughter and also solo, so she brings both a parent's perspective and a professional expertise. In our chat, I asked her about the destinations that surprised her most, the trends she's seeing in family bookings, underrated spots she wishes families would consider, and the common mistakes parents make when picking where to go. She also shared some fantastic advice for parents who feel totally overwhelmed when trying to choose that next family trip, whether it's your first overseas holiday or just your next getaway. Let's dive into our conversation. So, you've traveled a lot, both with your daughter and on your own. What's one destination that completely surprised you in how family friendly it was?
Well, I'm always a big believer that, you can find family-friendly sort of activities no matter where you go. And, an example I often give people is I took my daughter when she was about 7 to the Barossa Valley, and, known for its winery and that. And she just loved it. She loved it so much. So I think that there's often, but I guess to answer this question, like one of the places that I thought was great when I traveled with my daughter was around Europe. And I know a lot of people see it as a bit of a grown up, to have nice wines out in squares and stuff. But my daughter and I traveled around Europe when she was, probably around 8 or 9, and like the trains are really easy. It's really easy to get around Europe. Every city has a couple of museums, and no matter what the topic, they've got a way of making it child friendly. I remember taking her to places about the Berlin Wall, and and she just loved it. Like, it was very interactive and interesting.
Yeah.
They're done in a really good way that kids enjoy learning. I think Europe is one of those places that you don't necessarily go, oh, it's a family-friendly destination like Bali or Japan or something. But I think it's a great place, easy to get around and lots to do for families.
That's so good to know, like on a personal level, because we've spent a lot of time in Asia and the South Pacific. I've never taken the kids to Europe.
Mm.
Mostly just because budget wise with four of us.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
it is expensive. And the one thing I thought was always interesting is my daughter's, soft drink was always more expensive than my wine in Europe, which is.
So as a travel agent, you see where families are booking every day. What destinations are popular right now?
Look, I don't know if it's changed that much, but the biggest one that's right now, which is probably no surprise to you, is Japan.
Yeah, that's booming.
It is, and I went
myself in January. I was part of it.
Oh, right. Yeah. And look, I went with my daughter. I think it was 2019. It was just before COVID, and even then, it was like popular. So that's like 6 years ago, and it's still really popular. So lots of families are wanting to go to Japan, but I'm also just seeing it's also just the typical ones: Fiji, Vanuatu, Bali, Thailand, and the US for Disneyland. They're all still up there, but I'd have to say Japan is really hot. Everyone wants to go to Japan at the moment, like families, and I know why. It's great. It's like super.
I know. Cool. I think what Japan is, because Asia can be a culture shock, but I find that the culture shock in Japan, they're not unpleasant.
Yeah.
So the toilets are more fascinating and fun than I can't use that kind of feeling.
That's very, very true, because it's more westernized, right? So it's cleaner, easier to get around. People are super friendly. The one thing though with Japan, I did find the languages can be a bit of a barrier. Like you can get by, but it's not as easy as some of those other Southeast Asia places where most people can speak English and stuff. It can be a bit more tricky, but it's fine.
We went in January and we found by then everybody was using Google Translate.
Oh yeah. Google Translate, you get away with it everywhere now. Hey,
so that kind of fixed that problem for us, which was good. So how would you usually help parents choose the right destination? So is it about budget or kids' ages or travel style or something else?
All of those things. Budget is obviously the most important one, I think, to start with, because, well, if someone has a budget, that obviously, but also families' interests, the kids' interests. And I say families' interests. I think a lot of people, when they're traveling with their kids, they're like what their kids are into. But I'm a big believer that mum and dad should still have a really good time as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to spend their time watching their kid on a playground, right? That's boring.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things, like, just because you're a family now doesn't mean every trip needs to be Disneyland. And in fact, going back to like what I said about Europe, like I often would go to the places I wanted to go to, and my daughter would come along, and sure enough, there was always like something. And I talked about the Barossa. I think people or businesses know that if they keep the kids happy, then they can keep the parents happy, and they'll stay longer and spend more money or whatever. So it might sound a bit selfish, but I often tend to put my own interests first and then check whether or not it's family friendly, to be honest.
Yeah, so do I. I totally get that.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. My daughter has been to plenty of Disneylands around the world, so we do still do stuff for her as well. But yeah, so I suppose it's definitely families' interest, budget, travel style. Some people like to sort of be out every day sightseeing, where other families are more like, let's just hang by the beach or the pool. Yeah. So it's super important, I think, to one thing that I hear a lot that I think people need to stop doing is, so my friend told me to go here, or everyone's going to Japan, so I'm going to go to Japan too. Whereas maybe, your idea of a holiday is just hanging by the pool. So you're not going to enjoy going to Japan where, well, they're not resort style accommodation to start with, and there's no nice beach. So not just going with the flow, but thinking about what works for you. So really trying to get an understanding of what the particular family enjoys, what their budget is, time of year. I suppose not applying that cookie cutter approach, but thinking about what that individual family really wants.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any underrated destinations you wish more families would consider?
I don't know if I think there's so much underrated destinations. Maybe just thinking outside the square a little bit, like, as we know, lots of families from Australia go to Bali, which is fine.
Yeah.
But maybe go to Bali and then maybe go to one or two islands that are between Bali or Lombok, or go to Lombok as well. But like, you can still go to those places that that you want to go to, but maybe throw in something a little bit different as well. Or if you're going to go to Phuket, why don't spend a couple of days in the jungle, a couple of hours away? Just thinking about something a little bit different. And that goes for Australians or Queenslanders as well. I think we tend to overlook what we have in our own backyard sometimes. And I'm guilty of it as well. And it's one thing COVID did for me, which I think was so great. It really taught me to love my own country and to love Queensland. And so if you're a Queensland family listening to this, one of my biggest tip for you is do a road trip through outback Queensland with your kids before they get too old, because
That's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, so good. It's just
one of the best road trips we ever did was out to Winton for that Outback Festival. It was so fun.
Isn't it just like
the town was beautiful and the people were beautiful and they were all friendly and it was just so fun.
It's just casual, laid back, and it's one of my fun trips as well. Another trip that we did, not in outback Queensland, but driving through from Darwin down to Uluru, stopping at the national parks and swimming in water holes, and just it's a real, having an adventure with your kids like that is just amazing memories. And you do those trips while the kids are smaller, before they become teenagers and don't want to go anywhere.
Absolutely. So how much do you think the type of holiday, for example, like beach versus city versus adventure, matters when choosing where to go with kids?
It matters a lot, in that it matters like what your family's interests are. Getting back to sort of what I said before, if you just apply the cookie cutter approach and you go where all your friends are going, or where other Australian families are going, and it might not be right for you, or it might not be right for you at that time in your family's life. Maybe your kids are tired, you're tired, and so maybe a casual beach holiday is more appropriate. Or maybe your kids are the sorts of that are the types that will get bored on the beach, and you need to keep them entertained. Or like we were sort of saying about teens, like I find for my daughter to be interested in a trip now, it has to be really focused on maybe a theme park, or like what do you call it, like those wax museums where you can take Instagram photos, or something.
I think that's why Japan's so popular.
Yeah.
So much easier to engage a teenager in Japan.
Exactly. Yeah. So you really have to think about where you are as a family. Right now. Likewise, like I said again earlier, it's not just about pleasing the kids. Like if you just went on a trip around the world going to, Disneyland parks, like I would be so over that and I'd be a cranky mum. So it's just balancing everyone's interests. So it matters. So to answer your question, it matters a lot. So do definitely consider that when planning your family's trip.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So what's a common mistake families make when picking a destination?
I think there's a few mistakes. My number one thing that I see is people just trying to fit way too much in. Particularly, I see people like coming to Australia or Queensland, and they're like, "I'm here for a week, and I want to see this, and this."
Everything.
Yeah. Or I'm going to Europe for 8 days, and I'm going to see every country in Europe. Like, so just getting too much in. I think, but particularly when you've got smaller kids as well. You can't probably fit as much in every day. Smaller kids need more of a break, or maybe the mums need more of a break looking after.
They do. I know. Because when a younger kid is tired, that's it.
Yeah.
Your family's done for the day.
Yeah, done for the day. So, like when you might have been able to cram a lot in as a young backpacker or something, when you're taking little kids around, you just really have to factor that in. And then I'm finding it back at the other end. The teenagers can only go so long as well, because they need their Wi-Fi time. So, it's like come a full circle for me now. But yeah, so fitting too much in, and similar to fitting too much in is moving around or traveling too much, I think is another big problem. Like a lot of families I see, they're like, oh, well, I'll do one night here and one night there and one night there. And you don't realise how much time goes into like moving hotels, like packing up. And particularly if you've got more than one child, like packing their things up and moving. To me, moving hotels is almost like a day in itself. I mean, even if you were moving hotels within a one destination, it's a lot. But if you have to add in like 4 or 5 hours on the road, or you've got to catch a flight that day as well.
That's a whole day wasted. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I really encourage people to do less on their holidays, like, you know, focus on a couple of key destinations and stay longer than moving around too much. Not budgeting properly is another one I notice. Coming back to Japan, I think a lot of people, they think Japan's a cheap destination, and it kind of can be. Like food's cheap, you might get cheap flights, but accommodation is really expensive.
It's brutal, isn't it?
Crazy.
It's like going to Fiji. It's just brutal.
Especially like for families, right? You know, they pretty much expect that a family of 5 will fit in a shoebox. Like, so so not budgeting probably. The amount of times like when I'm doing up itineraries for families for Japan, and they're like going, is that, you know, is that luxury? And like, no, that's low level. Like that's entry prices. So just being aware that when you see, and like Fiji or Vanuatu, you might see a deal and you think, oh gosh, that sounds cheap, and so you buy those flights and you buy your accommodation and you go there and you realize like meals are like, you know, $50 for a meal sort of thing.
Yes. Yep.
So not budgeting and not being caught in by just one price, realizing there's, you know, many levels to budgeting out a holiday.
People often make the assumption that Asia as a whole is cheap. It's just not true.
Exactly. So yeah, just looking into all components of your trip before making or booking any component. Like, don't just book those flights because they were cheap and then go, that's really expensive.
So are there destinations that look great online, but then they end up being tricky for families in real life?
One of the things that I sort of said about being tricky is again, I mentioned Japan about being expensive, and Fiji and Vanuatu.
I find Fiji very much like that, and I wanted to like Fiji more than I did because everybody loves it. Like you said, everyone I know loves it, but I just didn't. I did not feel like it was good value for money.
And I'm the same actually
compared to other island destinations.
Yes. I'm the same. A lot of people. I've only been to Fiji once, and you know it was a long time ago. But I'm a bit the same. That everyone seems to be in love with it, and don't get me wrong. Like it's nice. It's nice if you want.
It's beautiful. It really is. I just think there's other beautiful places where the food isn't $70 for an adult meal.
Exactly. Like it's just you're paying a lot of money. So I don't know about things being tricky for families in real life. You know what's tricky? Going to Southeast Asia and pushing a pram down the street. That's tricky.
I think if you're a family that needs a pram, you need to wait to the altar.
That's tricky. Like footpaths, and I mean maybe they're getting a little bit better now, but you know I'm going back like 14 years ago, and I remember the first trip we took my daughter to, she was about 18 months and we're going to Thailand, and she wasn't walking just before we left, and I thought, oh, is she going to be crawling around, you know, dirty streets and stuff? But she started walking just as we left, and I was like, oh, thank gosh, because so I think that kind of stuff could be tricky, like that logistics stuff.
I've forgotten about that because my daughter turned 1 in Vietnam. And I just been paranoid. Like I've got this photo of her licking the hotel mirror. You know what they're like when they're that age.
Everything in the mouth. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, she's going to be sick for sure. But she wasn't. But
yeah. So I guess that kind of stuff can be tricky, and because, it's a long time ago for me dealing with that kind of stuff. But yeah, prams, I was so excited when I didn't have to take a pram anymore traveling, hey. But having said that, I think Southeast Asia is a great place for young families. But yeah, just keep those little things in mind that they're tricky.
For parents listening who feel overwhelmed with the options, what's your number one tip for narrowing down the choices?
I think it's really important just to be clear the sort of holiday that you're looking for, and really take some time to think about it. So think about that budget, and like we said, don't get caught out with not budgeting for everything. Think about, is your family the sort of people that want to do a lot of sightseeing, or would your family more benefit from just lying around a pool or the beach? But so not just going with what everyone else is doing, but what would your family benefit from? And then sort of setting those boundaries, and then only looking at things that that fit within that, rather than just going, oh, that looks nice. Look, the kids will grow up, and the interests will change, and maybe you might put something off now, but you can revisit that later. So really thinking about your family's needs.
So if a family listening right now wanted to start planning their first big trip, what's the first step you'd recommend? Like, what do they need to think about first?
We've covered it a lot, but if we're talking about a big trip, we're not just going to Bali and back or something. I think taking a really good amount of time just to kind of gather ideas. So not just go, oh, we're going to do this. Like, gather some ideas, think about things, talk to your friends, read lots of blogs. If you're into Pinterest, start a board. From a very young age, at the dinner table, my family and I would always talk about different destinations. We have a big map, and we'd look at different destinations and get a vibe for where everyone's interested. And then from there, just sort of work out, going back to those things we talked about before, what are your family's interests, budget, and looking at the few destinations that fit in with that. I guess at this point, I would say either if you're not the sort of person that wants to spend a lot of time planning a trip, then go and speak to a professional, like a travel agent. But if you're someone like me and Jess, who just loves putting all that little itinerary together, then I would say, pull out those Google spreadsheets, start mapping things out. But do be prepared to spend a few hours, each night to get it right. And then going back to some of the other advice that I said earlier is really pinpointing those destinations that you're going to spend time, and don't, be ruthless and drop a few destinations off if you think, I don't have the time for this itinerary. And the way I tend to drop destinations off is I look at what destinations are easy to get to, and sort of clustered together, because in that way you can focus on a cluster of destinations for this trip, and then maybe next trip you focus on that other cluster, rather than, I do see a lot of people like going to go, well, I want to take the kids to Disneyland, and then we're going to go over to see the Eiffel Tower, and then we're going to stop in Japan. Like, just focus on one area, and that's very extreme, but just focusing on one area, it'll be cheaper. You'll actually have more time if you go to less places. But yeah, just put the effort in. It's not easy planning a big trip, but I think it's a lot of fun. And in the end, it's well worth it.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mel. I really appreciate your time.
No worries. I love talking about travel.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about a different kind of holiday you might not have considered before. It's called a haycation. If you haven't already guessed, basically it's a farm stay where families can enjoy a slower pace, spend time outdoors, and let the kids experience things like feeding animals, collecting eggs, or even just running free in wide open paddocks. This doesn't mean you have to rough it though. Many farm stays offer a range of accommodation, from somewhere to park your caravan or camp through to boutique accommodation, like an old church that's had a beautiful uplift. If that sounds like something your family would love, we've rounded up the best farm stays near Brisbane, perfect for a weekend getaway or a short break. You can find that article on the Family Holiday Destinations website, and I'll also link this in the show notes for you. So that wraps up this month's episode. A huge thank you to Melissa Delaware for joining us and sharing her insights into choosing the right destination for family travel. I'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. And if you've got your own tips or favourite destinations, come and share them with us on socials. Thanks for joining me on this journey through family holiday planning. I hope this chat has inspired you to think differently about your next adventure. For more tips and detailed guides, head on over to the Family Holiday Destinations website at familyholidaydestinations.com. And until next time, happy travels and enjoy making those family memories.